morning, Bob.
Good morning, Mario.
All right, so today we are talking about sector analysis. So tell us a little bit about that. What is sector analysis?
Well, sector analysis is the assessment of the external and internal factors that affects a sector in the economy.
Right, so how do you differentiate that against, let's say, the technical analysis using charts?
Well, sector analysis is more of a fundamental analysis. We can use them by looking first for the sector that can be favorable. Then we can use technical by timing our entries for the stocks.
Right. So there are different schools of thought on technical and fundamental.
Yeah.
Some are strictly technical, they're just looking at the trends. Others, they really depend on the fundamentals and they don't believe too much in the technicals because they believe it's just, you're guessing which trend will show up on the chart. So you're saying that you can actually use both in tandem.
Yeah. So in this way, we can manage the risk for investors by knowing the fundamentals and timing the entry and exit for the stock.
Right. Okay. So we do have different kinds of sectors. Which sectors? Of course, there's different things that affect each sector because they have different businesses there. Let's say, for example, airlines. What factors do you look for when you consider airline stocks?
I think for airline stocks, we look at oil prices. Then we look at traffic, and we look at for government policies and directives. For example, what happened with the airline industry for last year, we saw high oil prices, and then we saw the government's push for the open skies policy. This gave a negative sentiment to one of the airline stocks listed here, which is Cebu Pacific.
Right.
So very, very large decline in their stock price.
Yeah, way below its actual IPO price of over 100 pesos. Also, there was also trouble with Paolo Holdings. But that was more of a company-specific news because of the labor issues. So do you think that's also a factor when you're looking at sectors with labor issues with the sector in general?
Definitely, it gives a sentiment towards the management and towards the company itself.
Right. Let's go to a different sector. How do you assess banking?
Well, banking can be assessed by looking at the interest rate environment for the country. Lower interest rate can give a push for more loans from retail and institutional clients.
Right. Yeah, and the Banco Central just cut rates, so you say that would be good for banks in general.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, let's move on to a different sector now. Property, of course, is leading gains right now. And recently, we actually spoke with a lot of analysts, and they say that driving property for much of January was the rate cut speculation because they were expecting that property or real estate developers to benefit from the lower interest rate. How do they benefit from those lower interest rates?
Well, lower interest rate supports purchases by customers using bank financing. It gives a more palatable scheme to acquire properties.
Right. Okay, so having said all of that, right now, what is Ampin and Associates favoring? Which sectors are you guys favoring for the year?
Well, firstly, we're still very bullish with the mining sector. The mining sector, we can see that there are a lot of M&As and partnerships coming in the Philippines. And still, commodity prices are actually rising right now.
Right.
Next sector that we're looking at would be infrastructure. Infrastructure, since the government plans to launch its big ticket PPP projects this year. So we can see a good play coming from the companies that is actually exposed to infrastructure. Next would be banking, since this big projects can be funded by the excess liquidity that we have in the banking system right now. And lastly would be, I think a good industry to look at would be the tourism and gaming industry, given the trust by the government to pursue the tourism and having projects completed by end of this year.
So it looks like you're saying that a lot of the growth in these sectors will be dependent on government infrastructure spending.
Yeah.
So it's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
So it was a problem last year because there was slower infrastructure spending, and a lot of analysts we spoke to blamed the slower economic growth because of the slow rollout of the PPPs. Do you think government is going to make good on their promises to actually increase the speed of the rollout of the PPPs and infrastructure spending this year?
Well, given what's happening, I think the government is actually on the right track on polishing the policies and the schemes for that project. So hopefully they can roll out their bidding by, as they promised us, first quarter of this year.
Right, right. Okay, all right. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. That was Mr. Paolo Alonzo, analyst at Angpin and Associates. Let's take a look again at the stocks, the stock market, the PSEI.